Alright guys, now let's continue with this. So last time we have so last time you did that already, right? And I already fixed that for you, and also I gave you some kind of sample answers, okay? And now we just continue with that. Actually, we have just finished the introduction and also the overall. Now let's move on to the body. But first of all, just remind a little bit, okay? Here, just, for the introduction, it's very simple. You just need to kind of paraphrase or try to explain the title again, right? The topic title, and also you give some information about the chart, and then you put everything in the introduction, and then that should be all right, okay? For example, here, and especially one thing you need to keep in mind is that you cannot use exactly the same words from the topic sentence, okay? You cannot use, actually you should not use anything there, okay? You can use, you can paraphrase them, you try to make sure that the information is unchanged, but the words you use should be different. For example, here they say the chart below gives information, so we replace that with the bar chart. Instead of saying the chart, we just add, okay, the bar chart or the pie chart or the graph or something. It really depends on the chart you have, okay? So in this case, you have a bar chart, so that's why you write the bar chart. And then instead of using gives information again, you can replace that with illustrates, okay? And then about how people aged 25 to 34 are housed in the UK, we can write something like the proportions of people aged 25 to 34 in the UK who either owned a home or rented accommodation between 2004 and 2014. Why we can use the word proportions, guys? Tell me. Why can we use the word proportions in this case? Hmm? Yes, that's right, because when we look at the chart on the vertical axis, right, you can see percent, okay? Percent, you have 10%, 20%, 30%, something like that. So that's why here you can use the word, the proportions. Okay, so we use, or the way we write this, actually it really depends on the information we get from the chart, and also from the topic sentence, and also from the requirements here. Okay, so that is kind of the best strategy for the introduction. Okay, so the proportions of people, and then age 25 to 34 instead of just age 25, and then we have we write like this. We just replace that with 25 to 34, and then in the UK, of course, we can use that again, no problem, in the UK. And for our housed, okay, our housed. Now explain to me why from the topic sentence you only see are housed, right? But in the introduction we have, I can write like who either own a home or rented accommodation. Why is that? Ngọc Anh, explain that. Thiên Nga. Tự. Tôi. Yes, exactly, because the chart has two categories, right? Two main categories. We have homeowner, that is the blue bars, and also renters, the green bars, right? So based on that, I can write who either own a home or rented accommodation, right? Because if you don't look at the chart, you just look at the topic sentence, you see the word are housed. But just based on that, you cannot just write like who either own a home or rented accommodation. No, that's impossible for you to write like that, just based on the words there, right? But here, when you look at the chart, you know, okay, we have two main categories here, so we're trying to combine that, and then we add things into the introduction. It's very clear. And then between 2004, okay, so we have why I can write between 2004 and 2014. Why is that? Someone else, please. Yes, that's the kind of information you can see or you can get from the chart, right? Not from the topic sentence. No, from the topic sentence, it doesn't mention anything about that, right? But here we combine the topic sentence and the title here, and also the information we got from the chart. That's why we can write a very kind of, not too much in detail, but it covers almost everything, right? It's very clear about the time, about the what we are trying to do, and also all the information there we added. We make it very short. We keep it short, but it's precise, and also it has enough information. Okay, so that is the best introduction you can have. Okay. All right. So after that, we are going to write an overall. That is the general trend of the whole chart. Actually, we did that last time already, right? So now I just try to remind a little bit. But guys, last time you already learned about that. Why today some of you cannot answer anything here? You still didn't get it, right? Try to focus, okay? So in the overall, can someone tell me what should we write in the overall? Yes, I know. What is that? What does that mean? What does that mean? The general trend. Yes, I know. What is that? Can you write about anything you like or what? What should you write about?
This means the data of each category increase or decrease in general.
Yeah, kind of. What else? What? Comparison? Yes, kind of, yes. What else? Well, actually, we just give kind of an overview of what we are going to write in detail later. But here in the overview, yes, you can add some kind of information there, but not too much in detail. Just the general trend. What does that mean? That means that we said, okay, this one is going up or that one is going down, something like that. And if we can make some kind of a little kind of comparison between some categories and see to pinpoint the differences or the most important thing there. Okay. But not too much in detail. For example, like in the overview, should I write like in 2004, almost 60% of people in the UK own a house or something? Should I write something like that? No, we should not, right? That is for the body. It's not for the overview. Overview, you just mention something very general. Okay? Like that. So here, what should we write? We say overall, home ownership among this age group declined significantly over the period. Why do we need to use the word home ownership? Why is that? Someone? Yes. What we are trying to do here is we should replace the word homeowners with home ownership, right? Because we don't want to use the same words again and again. So we replace homeowners with home ownership among this age group. Remember, you have to mention something about the age group, okay? What would happen if you don't mention it? What would happen if you didn't mention it? For example, if I say overall home ownership declines significantly over the period, is that okay? Why not? Yes, exactly. Because if you just say that home ownership declines significantly over the period, that means that it can be at any age, right? But that's not precise anymore. And if you just mention like that, you will get a kind of a minus point. You understand? Because your data is not correct. It's not precise. You might feel, okay, you are writing the right thing, but actually it's not. Do you understand? So be very careful. Because here we are talking about home ownership among this age group only from 25 to 34, not at any age. Okay? So you have to mention that. Decline significantly over the period. Yes, we can see it decline significantly, right? Over the period. It's good? Whereas, so here this one is really good, really nice, right? Whereas we are trying to what? Yeah, we are trying to make a comparisons between home ownership category and the other. Okay? Whereas renting became increasingly common. Okay? Renting became increasingly common. So what we are trying to say is more and more people try to rent a house instead of owning a house in that period of time. Okay? So that's why we can say in general. Whereas renting became increasingly common. And finally, we say by 2014, what happened? Like, I mean, at the end of the period, right? At the end of the period, what happened? We say the proportion of renters had overtaken that of homeowners. That means more people in the UK, of course, in that age group, okay, rented houses compared with the people trying to own a house. Yeah, so we make a little comparison there. By 2014, the proportion of renters had overtaken that of homeowners. And last time I already remind you about the word that, right? Why is that? Think, do you still remember? Yes, that in this case, that means the proportion, right? The proportion of renters had overtaken the proportion of homeowners. We are trying to compare the proportion of this category with the proportion of the other category. If you just say the proportion of renters had overtaken the homeowners, it doesn't make any sense. Okay? Just the same as you say, like the proportion of girls had overtaken the boys. It doesn't make any sense. Okay? All right, done. So we have just finished the introduction and also the overview, right? Now let's move on to the body. What should we do in the body? What should we write first? Tell me. What do you think we should do with this? Someone, please. So here we can try, when you see in a chart, if you see two different categories like this, we can start by describing one category first. Okay? And of course, during describing, when you describe one category, you may try to compare that category with the other where you find fit. Okay? If you think, oh, we should make a little comparison there, then why not? Okay? Now let's try it. So first of all, we are going to pick which category first? Homeowners or renters? I think, yeah, we should pick homeowners, right? Because it's stay first, then we just describe first. Easy. Okay? The blue one, right? So what can we say about this? So first of all, you try to describe the first part or the first year. Normally, that's what you should do. Don't just jump in and then describe everything. No, you describe the first year first. Okay? And the first year here is 2004, right? Okay. Then we can write in 2004. Okay, you can write in 2004. Of course, after that, you need a comma. In 2004, you see the blue bar chart there is almost 60%, right? So what can we say about this? Okay, we can say like, because it's not exactly 60%, so we can say what? If you want to say 60%, but not exactly 60%, it's almost there. So what should I say? How can I write it? Approximately, it can be more or less. So it's still not precise. Yeah, you can try nearly 60%. Right? Nearly 60%. And then what? After 60%, we should use what? What kind of preposition we should use? Of. Right? You don't just say like nearly 60% and then you say 60% people. No. Nearly 60% of people. Right? Is that okay? Is that enough? When I want to describe that category, I just say nearly 60% of people. For example, if I say 60% of people in the UK, is that okay? How can I say? How can I describe this? Yeah, I know. Whole house is something I know, but I want. Remember, we are trying to describe a group of people in a specific age, right? Don't forget about that. Otherwise, it can be anyone at any age. And that's not precise anymore. So nearly 60% of people, and in this case, you can try to use the word, or you can try to say, in this cohort. In this cohort. Let me spell that. C-O-H-O-R-T. C-O-H-O-R-T. Cohort means a group of people who share a characteristic, usually age. I mean, they share kind of similar age. Okay? So we can use that word, or you can say in this group. It's fine. So because we mentioned that group before in the overview already, okay? But here we try to use another word, which we say in this cohort. I mean, in this group of people who share the same age or similar age. Okay? So then, nearly 60% of people in this cohort. And now we want to say like own a house, right? So we can replace that. Probably we try to say like owned a property. How do you spell owned? Yes, that's right. O-W-N-E-D. Remember E-D, okay? Because this is in the past. If you just write with S, then it's wrong. Okay? Owned a property. Property is something like asset. In this case, we can understand it like a house. Okay? So then we point that. We pointed that group already. Nearly 60% of people in this cohort own a property. And now we try to make a comparison. Okay? Because in the first year it's very important. You describe one category and then you compare that category with the other one immediately. And it works very well. So that means at least you have some kind of comparisons, right? And then comma. Comma. And then you say compare with. Compare with how many percent of people in the other category? How many percent? 20? Exactly 20%? No. So we cannot just say 20%, right? Is that more or less? A little bit more, right? So how can we say that? Just a little bit more. Compare with what?
Over.
Just over. Yeah, compare with just over 20%. Okay? Which category? We want to say about the other group, right? Renters, right? 20%. Because before that we have like who like own a property. So in this case we can say who rented. Okay. Who rented? This is still the past, right? Compared with just 20%, just over 20% who rented. So we finished the first year, okay? And now after finishing the first year, we continue with what? Homeowners or renters, guys? Which one? Homeowners, right? Because remember, we are trying to describe that one, not the other one. We just make a little comparison because that is the requirement from the task, right? But don't forget, we are still trying to describe the first category, not the second one, in this paragraph. Okay. So go on. Again, we can say ownership, and then what? After that first year, what happened to the to home ownership? What happened? Ownership. Yeah. Okay. You can replace the word home ownership. You can say ownership. Okay. Then ownership. Then of course we can say it decreased, right? Decreased. So we can use which word? Let's try with declined. Okay. Ownership then declined. kind of gradually. Okay. Gradually. That means after every single year you see it just reduce a little and then a little and a little bit up in 2007, but then it's just go down, of course. Yeah. So we can say that ownership then decline gradually. And we can describe it somewhere. So first we start at the first year, and then we should go somewhere in the middle. Which year should we choose? Somewhere in the middle, because we just see it decline, right? It decline gradually. So which year? Somewhere in the middle, because remember you need the first point, the first year, and then somewhere in the middle, and then the last year. Okay. So somewhere in the middle. Which year should we write about? And why? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, we can see something special in 2011 and 2012, right? Because they're kind of similar. Okay. Yes. Now we can try to say that ownership then decline gradually, and then let's try to pick up somewhere in the middle, maybe in 2010. Okay, just before 2011 and 2012. Okay, so somewhere there, and then it dropped to what? Less than 50%, right? Less than 50%, so how can we say it? Okay, you can put a comma there, yeah? Ownership then decline gradually, comma. Falling or dropping is fine, but falling below, instead of saying 50%, we can replace that. We can replace 50% with what? Falling below, I know it is below 50%, right? Can we use something else like, remember last time you learned like a quarter, a half, third quarter, things like that. So what can we say about 50%? Falling below, yeah, falling below half. That means falling below 50%. Which year? Yeah, 2010, right? So you can say by 2010, falling below half by 2010. And finally, it went down to what? How many percent? In the final year, 2014. How many percent? How many? The last year, 2014, how many percent? Yeah, somewhere like 35, 36%. I think it's a little bit, something like 36%, right? Something like that. Okay, so falling below half by 2010 and reaching around and reaching around 36%. In which year? In 2014. So remember, we can say the enriching, yeah, falling below. You see, we use falling, verb ing, and then we use reaching, verb ing as well. And because we don't know for sure whether that is 36% or not, that's why we have to use around, right? Reaching around 36%, and don't forget the year. We cannot just say the number without a year, right? Around 36% in 2014. Okay? Done. Now we need to say something about 2011 and 2012, right? Because they are quite similar there. So and also here, if you can do this, then you can get a higher score. You see that even for the whole period, there was a downward trend, right? But at first it's just like it went down kind of steadily or gradually. But then, starting from which year, it started falling kind of faster. When? Starting from which year? Yeah, but 2000, yeah, but because 2007 is just go up a little, right? So we started from which year? Yeah, we can pick up kind of some year. Let's try with 2009, because from 2009 to 2010, you see there's a big drop. See? Because if you compare 2008 with 2009, yes, there's a drop. We can see that, but it's not as big as between 2009 and 2010, right? I think there's a big gap there. Correct? So we can mention something there. You can write, okay, full stop, the downward trend was particularly pronounced. Let me spell that. P-R-O-N-O-U-N-C-E-D. Pronounced. P-R-O-N-O-U-N-C-E-D. That means very clear, obvious. Okay? The downward trend was particularly pronounced after 2009. Okay? And then what? We have now we try to add something in between 2011 and 2012. We can say although the figure, comma first, comma, although the figure kind of stay stable, right? How can we say it stay stable? Right? How can we say that? Yeah, remained steady. Remained with ed, okay? Remained steady. At how many percent? How many percent?
Around 42.
Yes, around 42 or something. You can say at just over 40%, okay? At just over 40%, or we can say at around 42%, but we replace that because we just use around already, okay? So at just over 40%. When? In both 2011 and 2012. In both 2011 and 2012. Okay? Alright, something like that. Yeah? So in 2004, nearly 60% of people in this cohort own a property, compared with just over 20% who rented. So that's the first year. And then we say, okay, ownership then declined gradually, falling below half by 2010 and reaching around 36% in 2014. So remember, when we see, yes, even though we see it declined gradually, right? But we need to pick up like the first year, somewhere in the middle, of course somewhere special, okay? Somewhere in the middle, and then the final year, the last year. That's what we need to do. And then we come back, and then we write a little about some kind of special years, right? Some special years like 2011 and 2012, and also we see like the downward trend was pronounced after 2009, so we can mention about that as well. Of course, this is kind of high level writing, okay? So if you can do that, so of course you can get a high score. I know it's hard, of course, but it's high level, okay? So finished, we have just finished the first category, and we make some comparisons there. That's really good, right? Now let's move on to the second one, that is renters, right? Renters. Renters. Now, renters, is that the same as homeowners, or different or opposite? Opposites, right? So we try to mention about this at the beginning of the next paragraph. So we can say by contrast. Yeah, by contrast. Normally you use something like on the other hand or something, right? Or however, it's fine. Yeah, by contrast. Comma. Of course, after that, after the conjunction, you need a comma. On the other hand, however, it's fine. And next we want to say immediately from the first sentence of the next paragraph, we want to say how different it is. So we want to say on the other hand, or by contrast. Now I want to say something like the other category is kind of opposite or different compared with the first one. How can I say? Yes, something like that, right? We can say something like renters, or something. It was kind of it went to a different direction, okay? Like an upward trend compared with home ownership, right? Something like that. Okay. So now you understand. We can write something kind of more professionally. So by contrast, we can say renting instead of using renters or something, just like home ownership or ownership. Now we have renting. Renting followed the opposite. Should we use an S or ed or what? Ed, remember, okay? This is still in the past. So renting followed the opposite. Okay, so of course that is the kind of the opposite direction, right? But here we want to use another word. You can write it, that is trajectory. Trajectory, okay? Let me spell that. Trajectory. TORY. Okay, trajectory, kind of like the path or direction. Okay, like the curved path. We are talking about the curved path or the path. Okay. Cái này cũng giống như phương hướng thôi nha các bạn. Yeah, just like the path. Instead of using like direction or something, we can use that one, trajectory. Okay. So by contrast, renting follow the opposite trajectory. Okay, that's good. So that means we are trying to say that okay, it has a curved path, and this one is kind of opposite compared with the previous one. So now people, they get the general idea about this category, right? So now we want to describe like again from the first year. Okay, again from the first year to somewhere in the middle and somewhere at the end. Okay, or we just go from the first year to the last year if there's nothing special in between. Okay, so now we can say the proportion. The proportion of. Do we have any other word to replace renters? Yeah, you're right. People who rented a house or hire a house or some rented a house. But do you have any word, not just a phrase? Because that one we just try to paraphrase it to explain the meaning of the word renters, right? Renting we already used. Renters we used that already. Now we need something else, and it means renters. Have you ever heard of tenant? Tenant. So the proportion of tenants. TENANT. Should we use S or without S? With S. Why? Because renters have S? No. I know renters have renter has S, yes. But we don't write something because of something else like that. We write something because of the structure and the grammar of that particular sentence, right? So why should we use tenants here with S? Why? Yes, because we are talking about renters or tenants in general, right? Yeah, many tenants, many renters, not just one person or something. So the proportion of tenants. How? What happened? It kind of rose from some number in 2004 to some number in 2014, right? Of course, we can say went up or something. Last time you learned, we use a lot, right? So now this time we try to use the word rise or rose. Which one? Rows, right? The proportion of tenants. Rows, because it's in the past. Rows. It kept it kept growing up, or just some time ago it went down and then up and down, or what? Yeah, it kept going up, right? So we can say, how can we describe that? I need one adverb. Very good. Consistently. Very good. The proportion of tenants rose consistently. Okay? From how many percent? From how many percent, guys? Yeah, from just over 20%, but last I think that we used that already, right? Replace that. We have many words. Okay, we know a lot of words, so we don't write the same thing again. With just over 20%. That's what we use in the previous paragraph already, right? So this time we need to replace that. Not just over 20%, but we can say what? From what? From about. Okay, like approximately, right? We can use from about. This case we can say like 21%, right? From about 21%. Yeah. In which year? In 2004. Remember, you always have to mention the year. Okay, you cannot just mention the number without a year. Doesn't make any sense. Okay, from about 21% in 2004 to what? To how many percent in 2014? How many percent in 2014? Yeah, but about 48%. We have to use about 21% already. We don't want to use about 48%. Okay, to almost, yes, almost 50%. Okay, to almost 50%. The green bar here in 2014, right? To almost 50%. In which year? In 2014. Okay, makes sense? By contrast, renting followed the opposite trajectory. The proportion of tenants rose consistently from about 21% in 2004 to almost 50% in 2014. Okay? Yeah, you can mention somewhere in between or something. Yeah? But here I want to add something kind of more interesting. So just to ensure you will get a very high score. So if we have to compare between the first year in 2004 and the last year in 2014, so how many? I want to know the number, the gap. How many percent? How many percent? From the first year, 2004, to the last year, 2014, how many percent there? Trời, lấy 50 trừ 20 mà còn nghĩ nữa hả trời? How many percent? Yeah, approximately 30%, right? Okay, that's the gap between the first year and the last year. So we try to say something about that. So at least we make some comparisons, remember? So here we say full stop, of course. This represents. Do you know how to write represents? With s or without s or with et? What? Et? S? Yeah. S. This represents. it's just a fact, like after we describe that. Okay, this represents an increase. This represents an increase of how many percent? Approximately 30%, but approximately, remember, it's still like it can be higher or lower. We want to be precise. So can we use something else? Like less than 30%, right? Or more than 30%? Less, right? So we can use close to. This represents an increase of close to 30 percentage points. 30 percentage points. Yeah, that is 30%. Yeah, but we write it in a different way. So close to 30 percentage points. Yeah. So something interesting there, right? And also, just the same as the previous paragraph, you see, like we mentioned something interesting there. We say in the previous paragraph, we say the downward trend was particularly pronounced after 2009, right? And something just remained steady in 2011 and 2012. So this time we also need to mention something special there. You see that it went up all the time. When did it start like growing up very fast? When? Starting from which year? Which year? Yeah, somewhere starting from 2009, right? You see there's a big gap between 2009 and 2010, and then from 2010 to 2011, you see also kind of a big gap, right? So starting somewhere there, but of course we don't want to repeat like the same thing. So now we replace things here. So like we have like the first half and the second half, right? So which one? Like the beginning or the later one? Which period of time? Because the beginning of the period here, like 10 years, right? 10, 11 years. So the beginning is somewhere from 2004 to 2009, right? And the later one is from 2009 to 2014. So which one? Which one has kind of an obvious increase? The one before or the later one? Yeah, the later one, right? The later period. Okay? So we can say that. So comma, 30 percentage points, comma. With the sharpest growth okay, occurring in the later half of the period. Okay, with the sharpest growth occurring in the later half. Later you use LATTER, okay, in the later half. Occurring ing, do you need to double R or not? Yes or no? Yes. Yes, definitely we need to double R. Occurring in the later half of the period. Tức vào nửa cuối giai đoạn ha. Double T, yes, later. Or later, okay? In the later half. we just say letter, otherwise later, like you may misunderstand it with they're almost similar. So letter, yeah, letter. So occurring in the latter half of the period. Okay, done, finished. So that's it. We have just finished this task. Of course, with this one you can get like an 8 or more. The sample answer you read last time is somewhere like 6 or 6.5, and this one you should get like an 8 or higher, from 8 to 9. Okay, it's very close to 9, very close to 9. All right, done. So you can learn from that, but we can, first of all, you can take a short break. Yeah?